Are we live?
We are live.
Well, good. Ladies and gentlemen, what is good, y'all? We're sorry for interrupting your weekly dose of NXT with all of this going on, but still, though, I am the Chillmeister Chris Gary, host of Focus Fights Audio. My guest with me this evening is the co-host of the Dynamite Download podcast, the MPW Spotlight podcast, and the Mental Mindset podcast, Myndrunner. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm very excited to be here. You know, anytime, any opportunity to talk wrestling with another wrestling sicko like yourself, I am down for. And yeah, let's get to it. I mean, WrestleMania weekend, it's supposed to be like the biggest wrestling weekend of the year. Could it be replaced by another weekend? I don't know. Is it living up to what it should be? I don't know. I figure we're going to get into a lot of that tonight, but super hyped. And yes, apologies for interrupting your NXT enjoyment, but yes, we can definitely talk about NXT and a lot of stuff going, a lot of cool stuff. I'm excited. Let's dive into WrestleMania talk.
Well, first of all, when it comes down to WrestleMania week, I mean, obviously, everybody's going to be, I mean, when it comes down to professional wrestling, we all know that, you know, WWE is pretty much the be-all, end-all to some, but when it comes down to all these other promotions, I mean, I think there's going to be a whole ton of promotions that are out there looking to do shows, especially some that are, you know, willing to bend the envelope, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, come to think of it, when you look at all the non-WWE action going on right now, I mean, especially going on this weekend that isn't obviously NXT or whatever, I mean, what do you think comes to mind? What do you think that the average wrestling fan should be looking forward to?
Well, see, that's kind of the thing, because you have to, like, the casual wrestling fan, all they're thinking about is WrestleMania. You know, that's the big, that's like the Super Bowl for wrestling fans. But the sickos, the real, you know, if you're really passionate about about wrestling, you're absolutely right. There's so many other independent wrestling shows that are going on during WrestleMania weekend, and that's been kind of a tradition, because it's kind of like, like a lot of independent promotions, they want to build their shows around that weekend. And the first thing that comes to my mind is anytime there's a weekend like this is GCW. You know, they seem to be a promotion that likes to kind of piggyback on a lot of different big weekends. They did that with Double or Nothing a couple years back, and they've done that with AEW, and they're always looking for something. I know Effie has his big gay brunch he likes to put out there, and then there's a lot of but it's interesting too, because sometimes it's a lot of it has to do with location. We talked about before we got on here how excited we are about AEW's choice to go to Texas for All In this year, because Texas being such a huge wrestling state, you know, state with all kinds of different cool promotions there. But Vegas, that's kind of like, that's like America's playground. That's where I think there's going to be a lot of talent there. Hopefully we're going to be able to see a lot of that. But right now, GCW kind of comes to mind as, like, I always think, okay, well, whenever there's a big WWE or AEW pay-per-view, what's GCW doing around that time?
I mean, and if you look at Game Changer Wrestling, GCW, they pretty much have WrestleMania week all locked up. I mean, they basically have the Pearl of the Palms all wound down with the upcoming Collective coming there.
Yeah.
I mean, the only shows that I'm pretty much interested in for that weekend is Bloodsport and For the Culture, as in FOUR, now that they're working with West Side Gun, which basically takes away from all the African American professional wrestling mindset that For the Culture, FOR, is basically known for. But still, though, you got Prestige Wrestling, you got West Coast Pro, you got BZW. You even got Marvelous Puroresu basically making their way out to Vegas, and even
Crazy.
Spark Joshi Puroresu teaming along with Stardom.
Yes.
Mhm. And I mean, kind of think of it. Even though Spark and Stardom are basically working together, albeit at a little offshoot, crappy hotel out on the outskirts of the Las Vegas Strip. I
Yeah.
mean, Silverton, the Silverton Casino ain't like the old Vegas Hilton, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
It's a little off the strip, but hey, sometimes that's where the real fun is, right? A little bit off the strip.
yeah, of course, off the
Yeah.
beaten path. But if you look at what Spark and Stardom have done, basically just to partner up with one another, I think that their main show is going to be on Thursday when you got
Mhm.
Shuri Kondo, UFC veteran, Pancrase veteran, Stardom veteran, tagging with Zoe Lucas against Jada Stone and Starlight Kid, and then for the
Oh,
part. Mm-hmm.
Jada. Sorry, I just Jada Stone. Anytime Jada Stone, that she's a future star. I mean, she's already a star in the Indies, but when she was tagging with Maya World and just the stuff that she's been doing, she's one to watch. I'm gonna AEW or WWE need to snatch her up very soon.
Yeah, of course. But still, though, looking at the lineup for Spark Joshi Lady Luck, which is going to be taking place on Thursday at the Silverton Casino off the Vegas Strip, you got Shuri Kondo and Zoe Lucas versus Jada Stone and Starlight Kid. Then for the Spark Joshi World title, I think this is going to be the first time they're crowning a champion.
Mhm.
Hazuki versus Lena Cross. I mean, when you look at those two matches, and I know that's not the full lineup,
Yeah.
because sometimes cage matches a little late to gathering stats, but still, though, when it comes down to this matchup, I mean, especially the main event, what comes to mind between Hazuki and Lena Cross?
I don't know. I have to, Lena Cross. I need to look more into, but I do think I am excited to. What was really exciting to me
Mm-hmm.
is I'm an AEW mark, and so I'm super excited to see when Mina Shirakawa is going to be much more full time. And I know that I think on Friday Mina is going to be involved too. So I
Yeah.
would like to see Mina involved, like show up on third, like at some point, and just kind of make her presence known, because she's a perfect highlight for Stardom to kind of even though she's going AEW, she's still kind of that Stardom celebrity, that Club Venus persona, and I would love to see her kind of make her presence known this weekend. And it's a great way to advertise herself for appearing on AEW down the line. But this, I think she would get a lot of eyes on a lot of the Stardom activity this weekend, and I'd like to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Mina Shirakawa because she's going to be competing at Stardom American Dream in Neon City at Meet Las Vegas,
Mhm.
MEET Las Vegas. I think it's in the downtown section of Las Vegas. And the
A-
card for
as opposed to MEAT Las Vegas. That's a different party.
yeah, another story, another time. But still, the
Yes.
6 person. I mean, if you look at the card, 6 person tag team match,
Uh-huh.
6 woman tag team match, Empress Nexus Venus, Hanako and Maika tagging with recently announced AEW signing Megan Bain against Hate, Konami, Momo Watanabe, and as you're wearing the t-shirt, Kali and Tita.
I'm a little biased on that one, even though I would not be surprised if Watanabe is Japanese for ass kicking, or because damn, because Momo, like, I don't, and this is one of those things. I don't mean to interrupt the flow here, but
It's okay.
like, we talk about, this term came out the last year, or I think it was last year, when people were kind of knocking some of Tony Khan's booking, and they called it, he books for the sickos. And this, and I take that, and I took that as like that people are taking that as a negative, but I think the sickos are the ones that are really like the diehard fans. And it's sometimes like it's weird when you'll watch AEW or you'll watch WWE or you watch something, and they'll announce like like when Vikingo made an appearance at WWE or at AEW,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of people like, who is this guy? And I'm like, well, Google's a thing. If you go and just like go on YouTube and type in El Hijo de Vikingo or type in Momo Watanabe, you'll understand why people, well, there's a good portion of sicko wrestling fans freaking out. You know, when that first moment when Minoru Suzuki showed up
People were like, I think
yeah,
I remember what you was. I think I remember what you
Mox,
were basically saying. People were like, "Who?"
yeah, but the people that knew enough to sing along with Kazi ni Nare.
Mm-hmm.
So and when they had that moment, so he gets in there now. There's a ton of people like, who is this guy? Why is Moxley afraid? But then when the music hit, and when it hit that moment, there's enough sickos in the building that went, Kazi ni Nare. So I think like when you get like Momo Watanabe, you get some of these people that like Masha Slamovich to people that watch only WWE is somebody from TNA, is the TNA champion, and she showed up a couple times. But if you, Masha Slamovich is not, as you and I know, is not just a TNA wrestler. She is, I actually think there's a curse on planet Earth that Masha Slamovich has to wrestle every day or the earth will explode. She has to find a match every day, because if you look at her just her cage match, I don't think there's a date where she doesn't have a wrestling match. She's wrestled a bear. I mean, she's wrestled. The only thing she hasn't wrestled is, and I'm hoping she'll get to that, is what is it, Yohiriko? You know what I'm talking? Is it Yomahiko? Yohiriko?
I mean,
Yoshiriko?
you're talking about the wrestling doll Yoshihiko, right?
Yeah, Yoshihiko. Yeah, I always get the name wrong, but that's, yeah. Anyways, but yeah, but I guess where I'm going with that is it is kind of that. I hate to use the word casual wrestling fan, but folks that are just kind of the mainstream wrestling fans, there's such a vast universe of wrestlers out there that aren't on WWE that are having these that are like they're superstars in their own program, but are so talented. But it's like those of us that are aware of them, we freak out when, like when you said Jada Stone, I'm like, the Spark. I was like, oh yeah, I would get excited about her facing Athena or her facing, Tony Storm. Yeah, I would get excited about that. Where other people are like, who's Jada Stone? Which, not to go on a tangent, but this is one of the reasons why I think AEW needs to bring back Dark, because they would bring on these independent talents, and we got to learn about these other wrestlers. That's mad. And some of them would eventually go on to kind of be either signed with the company or at least sign one of those tier 0. Red Velvet's a great example of that. Will Hobbs, you have Kylan King. A lot of these wrestlers would start off as, I wouldn't even say enhancement talent, because they would hold their own, but they would be on Dark, and then we'd see them, and then they would start to get more, a little bit more prestige when they would sign at independent shows. And then before you know it, they're popping up on TNA. They're popping up on, they're starting to gain prominence. And I really think that was AEW Dark was helping the independent scene more than I think they knew they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And looking down the list of the Stardom American Dream card, if I can continue.
That's right.
It's okay, dude. I get interrupted all the time doing this damn show.
I'll try not to, but I get excited sometimes,
It's okay, man. I understand how you feel. But the rest of the Stardom American Dream card taking place on Friday, Azumi, AZM for short.
Yeah.
Johnny Robbie taking on Maya World, a mainstay of the reality of wrestling down in my neck of the woods, and Starlight Kid Then in an intergender 6-person tag team match, Anand Saya Ida and Dylan Kyle Cox, aka the DKC of New Japan Pro Wrestling, taking
Mhm.
on the other two members of Hate, Natsuko Tora and Telka, and they are tagging with 100 Proof, Clark Connors of the Bullet Club War Dogs. Then, co-main event, Shuri Kondo taking on Kelsey Heather. And in the main event, Hazuki and Suzu Suzuki, who could have a chance to become the Deadlock Pro Women's Champion in a few weeks.
Mhm.
They will tag with, of course, two people that we're pretty much familiar with now, Mina Shirakawa, and
Mhm.
somebody that I'm familiar with from her days with the reality of wrestling, even though it sucks that those days pretty much caused her to leave because of some crazy shit that happened.
Mhm.
House Rose, Rachel Rose.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't want to talk about what happened with Rachel Rose at the Row because, it's best to basically not talk about shit that's happening. I mean, that basically caused chaos rather than talk about the good in somebody's career.
Yeah.
Because I think Rachel Rose, should she do her damnedest and show up and show out in this particular match with her tagging with Mina Shirakawa versus Suzuki and Hazuki, I mean, I think that this might be her calling card to go to Japan.
And anybody like Japan should really be, a lot of people talk about their dream is WWE, but going to, wrestlers know that going to Japan, that is kind of the um that's something you want stamped on your passport, because you look at a lot of talent, they go to Japan, they come back a better wrestler. Nobody goes to Japan and does the Japan tour properly and not come back a better wrestler for it. You look at Anna Jay. She took some time off, she went to Japan for a while. She came back a better wrestler. You can argue her
Mm-hmm.
prowess, but she definitely came back. Jada Stone, again, Jada Stone going to Japan, yeah, it only enhances the talent. I think that's something that I think is huge, and it may not be and I think we're in a time now too where wrestlers, because it's the wrestling industry is the way it is has changed. The landscape's changed. Yeah, I'm an AEW mark, so I am going to say a lot of it had to do with AEW being a viable alternative to WWE. It
Mm-hmm.
really has helped, not just being a fan, but being a wrestler. You have options, and you don't. A lot of times, you don't. The fan doesn't necessarily always see what the wrestlers see. Yeah, sometimes the wrestlers, it could be their dream to go to Japan, or they're more look or go to CMLL or go to AAA, wrestle in Mexico, wrestle in the UK. And that's to me, I think that's what makes a well-rounded wrestler, is you make a name for yourself in all these not just in these promotions around the country, but in the other countries as well. And I guess what I'm saying is that I think that if you can make a big name for yourself in Japan, that's from a wrestler standpoint, would you rather be enhancement talent on WWE, or would you rather be like top of the card, or near top of the card on in a Stardom or in a New Japan show? You know what I mean? Like,
And I mean, come to think of it, and I hate to interrupt you on that,
no,
but
go ahead.
like when it comes down to going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, I mean, obviously there's New Japan Strong here in the States. In Australia and New Zealand, it's New Japan Tamashi.
Hmm.
It's Rep Pro over in the UK. But there's basically a whole lot of these places showcasing that type of talent, and not a lot of people either have the money or the interest or the time just to care about this stuff.
Yeah. Hmm. That you do make a very good point. I mean, it's that yeah, that's kind of like in general with like the news, is there's a lot of people just read the headlines, they don't read the whole story, and that doesn't mean, that's not necessarily a slam on people, because you you work all day, you come home, you just want, hey, just show me what's cool. But I do think that technology and availability, there's a lot of great wrestling out there that if people are aware of that. Heck, last night, by the way, just as a segue, I went to my first micro wrestling show last night, and it was tremendous. Like,
Wow.
again, micro wrestling, they're little people wrestling, and the main event was Jamaican Joe, the champion, versus Heavy Metal Mario. And yeah, it sounds silly. It is fun. It's a fun. Everybody, there's a lot of good comedy, but the little wrestlers, they were cutting promos as good as anything an MJF, or like they were cutting like promos that are worthy of TV. They were, and Jamaican Joe, like he pulls out out of his trousers a roll of toilet paper and says, "This is what I think of Virginia Beach," and he throws it. He goes, "Y'all are bomba clats," and they're like, "Oh no, we're boo," And it was just, and then Mario comes out and cuts a promo and says, "Hey, you say you're Jamaican, but where's your Jamaican accent? Are we going to start calling you Faking Joe instead of Jamaican Joe?" And then everybody's Faking Joe. So, there's wrestlers. You find these gems out there, these diamonds out there in the wrestling industry. I highly encourage everybody to try to find, just look up your local wrestling promotion, and see if you can go out there. You may be one of 20 people, but it's one, you're going to have a great time, and two, it's going to mean a lot for the talents there, and three, you may be one of 20 people to see a match with wrestlers that in 10 years, 5 years might be featured in a main event on WWE or AEW.
Yeah, of course, especially considering the fact that you talk about micro wrestling, midget wrestling. I mean, let's just face facts. I probably would be too tall for that promotion. I'm only 5'3", but
you'd be
when it comes down to those competitors, I mean, they could probably do things that Micro Man wishes he could do.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Jamaican Joe and Heavy Metal Mario were doing top rope stuff. They were doing Spanish flies. I mean, it was like Osprey level stuff a couple times. The women's division, one of my new favorite female wrestlers is Carolina Reaper. She's basically 4 foot. She's 4'8".
Wow.
Which for the little people, that's actually like a giant, like in their comparatively, because a lot of them are about 3 foot something. Yet she has this persona that's a mix of Rhea Ripley and The Undertaker. And she's like their big heel, like she's like their big villain. And she wrestled Little Miss and just was like, and they did a mini Canadian, basically did a Canadian Destroyer. And I'm watching this, and it's like, this is just as good as something I would watch on TV. This was pay-per-view level matches, and it's at the Seaside Raw Bar in a ring that's maybe 12, not like 20 feet by 20 feet,
Wow.
or it was fantastic. It was so much fun.
Now you're talking about this little woman. Who was she called again?
There's Carolina Reaper, and Little Miss was her opponent.
Oh, okay. Well, when it comes down to it, I mean, you could basically say she's not that tall enough to sit in a car seat, in an adult-sized car seat properly, but she basically can kick a lot of people's asses.
Yes. And in the persona too, like, this is another thing that I like is when, and this, we've talked about this a lot, both on Dynamite Download and on Mission Pro, is when a wrestler kind of finds, I hate to use the word gimmick, but they find their voice in a character, or they find their groove. You look at like a Toni Storm who struggled to really find, and you could argue that, creative, whatever, struggled to kind of find herself in WWE. Exactly. And then she comes to AEW and she's timeless Toni Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue Ricky Saints, he's still Ricky Starks to me, but Ricky Saints, and you could argue that, oh, well, anybody that goes from AEW, WWE, they're going to push real hard, but there's a reason. Ricky Saints, he's great, and he just, for whatever reason at AEW, we don't have to get into it, he wasn't quite finding his spot. He goes to NXT, and it's great. It's celebrated. Penta, Ray Phoenix, it's like they go to. I do like that wrestlers can go to a different promotion and then start to find their voice and find who they are and really get themselves, like, really find ways not to get themselves over, but really start to find their groove. And I really like that. And I like that when a wrestling like, I like to compare, talked about Julia Hart when she was doing the cheerleader gimmick. It was okay. It was kind of what she knew. But when she switched and became the Instagram witch, like when she joined the House of Black, she took off with that. Now that's like her best character.
Yeah, of course. And you could probably say that joining the House of Black really changed up Julia Hart's character for the better, not for the worse.
Absolutely.
Especially considering the fact that she at least has that intimidation factor,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I just hope that they continue. With now that Malachi Black looks like he's going back. They've changed to the Hounds of Hell stable. I hope that they get some W's, because Brody King, that's such a great faction still. Brody King, Buddy Matthews, or Buddy Ripley, as some people call him. And then Julia, Julia is such a compelling character. I hope she gets some W's in her future. I do like that match she had with Jamie Hayter, and Jamie Hayter went out of her way. She grabbed the mic and she said, and this was one of those moments where I feel like it was a shoot. Jamie Hayter looked at her and said, "You're one tough bitch." And it cut back to Julia Hart, and there was a moment where she kind of broke character. You could see, like, Julia almost started crying, because, like, that meant a ton to come from someone that Julia Hart sees as more of a veteran in Jamie Hayter. That was a true compliment in front of thousands of fans for Jamie Hayter to say that. And that's the stuff. I love that kind of stuff. I think that's fantastic.
Would you basically say that, in a way, considering the fact that Hayter's been out for so long because of injuries and issues, that it felt like a passing the torch, or just, a shout out?
Sure. I would say passing the torch if Jamie Hayter was getting ready to retire. I don't think she is, but yeah, I think it was definitely something, I would say, akin to that. Like, it was an acknowledgement. It was kind of like, it was a bit of a, hey, it was definitely a recognition moment that it was an anointing that, hey, yeah, Julia, you were worthy of me stopping this and making that comment in front of everybody. And that I think a lot of young wrestlers need that as much as, I'm sure there's a lot of wrestlers out there out for themselves, but when you have, especially like in a women's locker room where the veteran wrestlers are helping the young ones lift them up, I think that's a huge thing. You could even argue that the whole young boy program in New Japan, although, that sounds like it's like indentured servitude, it's actually designed to be helpful, because it's designed to make, it's designed for a veteran to kind of take them under their wing. And even though they're like, "You're carrying my bags, kid," that kind of thing, it's, they're pushing this respect, but also they're taking those young boys under their wing and showing them the ropes and advising them. And in a way, if your young boy sucks or makes him, has a mistake, it reflects on the master, the teacher, the senpai kohai kind of symbiosis. And I kind of like that. And I really hope that, I think a good wrestling promotion, whether it's the smallest independent wrestling promotion or WWE, if the locker room has that that we're in this together to put on the best show attitude, it's going to translate to the fans and you're going to knock it out of the park. When you have something toxic in that locker room, it's going to make everything chaotic. And that's also something that the promoters, the people running the program, need to make sure they stamp out any negativity. Not much negativity, but anything toxic needs to be gone. And I don't think that's always the case. I think sometimes profit gets in the way, or you have a promoter that doesn't quite know, doesn't have that willingness to confront certain things. But if you can foster a positive locker room, you're going to have success because people want to work there, they want to perform, and they're going to collectively want to put on the best show possible.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, come to think of it, you mentioned, locker room cancers and all of that. I mean, I was just looking at this recent episode of WWE LFG, Legends of Greats, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically looking at this ass clown named BJ Ray. Sexy BJ, for those who probably don't know.
Yeah.
The dude is a cocky little arrogant prick who only got over because of the fact that he was a college wrestler at Duke University alongside Tony D'Angelo, and he basically was, let's just say he's just basically a little cocky bastard, and he was getting on the nerves of Bully Ray.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the clip of what happened this past week on LFG, but he was a part of a tag team match on one of the recent episodes, and he just basically tried to work stiff and tried to work over the crowd and didn't care too much about his tag team partner. So the whole match kind of messed up. And then that's when Bully Ray, well, actually, it was after the match, Bully Ray and Mickey James tore into his ass like a fresh kill. Bully Ray basically said, in all my 30 years of doing this, I've never seen an unprofessional sack of shit like you, or something like that. I mean,
wasn't he the guy? Was he the guy that Bully Ray first called out because he had a smirk? Like he kept smirking all the time. I think it was like early on. This guy,
trying to out for a handshake too.
Yeah. Oof.
I mean, basically, it's like that type of situation where you gain respect by earning respect, you know? And I mean,
I don't know if you had a chance to check. I don't know if you heard of the comedian Andrew Schultz. He has a show called Flagrant, and recently he had Triple H on there. And Triple H, it was great. It was like a 2-hour podcast, and Triple H was talking about everything from the quad injury and coming back, the whole thing with Stephanie. It's great listen to everything. And it gives you, and it really gives good insight on how working with Vince is. But when he talks about that Madison Square Garden moment where when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were getting ready to go to WCW, and the four of them with Shawn Michaels, they hugged inside the cage. They had that moment where they were all saying goodbye. Yeah, exactly. The curtain call, exactly. And what happened was, apparently Vince was okay with it at the time, but I guess a lot of people got in his ear. And the next day, Vince basically said, since he couldn't do anything to Scott Hall or Kevin Nash because they were gone, and they couldn't do anything to Shawn Michaels because he was the champion. And I guess Shawn Michaels kind of had a little bit of sway with Vince more than the other wrestlers, and that could be part of the Montreal screw job could have later been part of that too, but whatever. But Triple H, they basically, Vince told him, you're going to have to eat shit and like it for a while, because I have to do this to make an example out of you so that other wrestlers don't start, peeling the curtain back and showing, between kayfabe and shoot. And so for a while he was just being booked, terribly. He was losing. He originally was supposed to, I think, win the King of the Ring tournament. And instead, and this is ironic, this is actually kind of ironic, he was supposed to win, and instead they replaced him with the ringmaster Steve Austin.
who would later go on to be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Exactly. In fact, it was him versus Jake the Snake where he cut the famous Austin 316 promo. If Triple H wasn't removed from that, there would never have been that moment where he would have cut that Austin 316 promo, which they're talking about. It's like people I think are more familiar with Austin 316 than John 316. So it is. Yeah. Anyways, it's worth a listen, but I think that's interesting how, Vince had to kind of make a name. He kind of had to not make a name, but he kind of had to make an example of Triple H. But the Triple H had a choice. He could eat the shit and then earn his way back and look at where he is now. He proved himself. But you get a kid like
going back to WCW after being released and just found his way there.
Yeah, he could have been terrorizing again and did there. Now, you talk about BJ Ray, this is a kid that needs to kind of learn, you got to respect the people that have gone before you, and you got to learn sometimes to eat shit, and I don't know if it's one of those things where kayfabe, it can make a great heel, but if that's your true personality, you're not going to last long in this business.
I mean, shit. Try telling that to Logan Paul.
Oh, jeez. What do you think of Logan Paul?
I think he's an arrogant piece of shit. That's all I can say about him. I think he's a cocky prick, but he backs it up. I mean, yeah, sure, the only title that he's won is the U.S. title, but I won't be surprised if he manages to have a good showing against AJ Styles and, manages to win said match, he'll be moving on to more success. If not, oh well, there's always his damn reality show with his brother Jake, Paul American on Max, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Still though, when it comes down to it, I guess it just shows that, you could basically be an arrogant prick and still make people believe that you can do some amazing things. You just got to make sure that the fans actually feel that believability,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that you bring up an interesting, point that I've kind of thought about for a while is when you look at a talent, it's almost like you got to almost look at them like a spreadsheet. It's like, what wrestlers come to mind where, like you look at a CM Punk or a Britt Baker, or, you look at some of these talents where there's controversy and baggage, but there's also talent. And where on the spreadsheet do a lot of these wrestlers where their talent is so much more of a positive that it's worth dealing with the negatives. Mm-hmm. And you look at a Logan Paul, it's Logan Paul, you know what you're getting. And yet this is a guy that I thought, oh, this is just going to be like a one-off, just a publicity stunt. And this dude can wrestle. I mean, this dude can actually perform. Just like I was surprised Jake Paul. Now, granted, the Tyson match, don't get me started on that freaking thing. But other than fixed fights like the Tyson fight,
dude,
Jake
that's
Paul,
a boxer.
Yeah, he's a legit boxer. So it's like when they can back it up, I'm kind of reluctant to completely, dismiss him. And, it is good for business when you have a personality like a Jake or like a Logan Paul. I mean, he doesn't quite get the heat like Dominic, but, he does have his hater, you get like that, but they have the time. Okay. Ricochet is a great example for me. Now, he doesn't have real baggage because, he's happily married now with Samantha and all that, but he's another one of those that came to AEW from WWE, couldn't quite get his groove there. Super talented.
I can tell you this, and I hate to interrupt on that.
No, go ahead, please.
But like you were trying to say, he's a super talented competitor. He can jump high with the best of them. I mean, hell, if not, he wouldn't have had that viral moment with Logan Paul about 2 years ago. But still, though, the thing about him was that everybody was just looking at him in WWE and seeing him as this bland superhero, this guy who couldn't turn who basically couldn't turn on a watch if he was, so to speak.
Yeah.
He couldn't turn heel if he even wanted to turn heel because people basically remembered him too much as a superhero type of
Yeah.
character. Now, here he is, and yes, with that phony ass Jada Kiss laugh. He basically is basing his character off of, damn, what's that one Nathan Lane movie, American Psycho?
Is American Psycho? I actually think there's a little bit of Andrew Tate.
Oh,
Not quite,
don't,
but
don't fucking get me started on the Tate brothers.
but I mean, he's not completely, but I like, that he's that arrogant, like that he's just really finding his own. Is it, you said Nathan Lane, American
Psycho.
Yeah. Well,
I
that
mean,
was American Psycho was Christian Bale.
oh, right. Either way, he's kind of basing his character off of Christian Bale in American Psycho because of the fact that I mean, we saw how he handled that feud with Swerve Strickland. He could basically turn into a real life psychopath just that quick,
When they were throwing the toilet paper at him and he was covered in toilet paper. What's so funny is like, kayfabe, Swerve buried him. But in reality, I think that did more to put him over as a heel, the crowd was kind of booing him. But that moment, that's when the crowd really almost got to Dom level of boos, of heat. And when he's covered in TP, and then he, later he attacks Swerve with the scissors. I felt like that was Swerve. And I know that Swerve has his haters out there, but Swerve is one of my top 3. And I think it's because of the growth that he's had since he's come to AEW. And he's right now in one of the most compelling storylines that they've had for the to me, it's one of the most compelling storylines AEW's had. His storyline with Hangman Adam Page. But Swerve knows not just the moves, but he knows how to, and not only he knows how to emote in the ring and how to build story, but he also knows how to help his dance partner look good too. And I think he did wonders for Ricochet coming across as such a great as the heel that he is. And now Ricochet's found his groove. Kind of like we were talking about too. When you find your groove, you roll with it. And they're chanting bald. That they're just yelling. And I don't know if you saw the 4-on-4 last week on.
I seen that. They basically, I mean, it was an 8-man tag team match. It was Ricochet, the Beast Mortos, Leo Rush, and Action Andretti versus Mark Briscoe, Will Ospreay,
Speedball Mike Bailey,
and Kevin Knight.
Kevin Knight, New Japan.
Mm-hmm. But still, though, Ricochet getting his head slapped by those 4 men that I just mentioned turned himself into not only a viral moment, but a meme moment.
Yes.
Hell. And
slap.
Yes. 4 collective slaps to 1 bald head.
Yeah.
But still, though, it's. I mean, basically, I can quote to when it comes down to Ricochet and Swerve Strickland, or better yet, Swerve Strickland and Hangman and Page. I mean, I could basically quote this to something I just heard off of a voice acting podcast from Crispin Freeman. It's always do your best to make your scene partner look good.
Yes.
And in a way, what Ricochet has done since he got into AEW, first with Swerve Strickland, and now I guess with, I don't know if it's going to be with Mark Briscoe next or something, or better yet, what Swerve Strickland is doing with Hangman and Page over the last year since the house burned down incident. Yeah. I mean, they're basically doing their best to make the others look good, regardless of how the scene goes,
Yeah. And the talent can sniff out when you're, the term going into business for yourself. It's not just when you go against what the plan is, but when you're when you're sandbagging somebody, and there's wrestlers, and we've seen it, and we don't have to get into it, but there have been wrestlers that there have been wrestlers accused of sandbagging that weren't sandbagging, Thunder Rosa. And then there's been wrestlers that actually do sandbag, and it's because they don't want their opponent to look good or for whatever reason. But that ruins the whole match. It makes you look bad just as much your opponent. But if you can get a dance partner that you can help elevate, it elevates you as well. And like people like Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, a lot of these wrestlers, they can have a great match with anybody. But
I mean,
if
you also say that about Bryan Danielson. I mean, a lot of people used to say back around a few years ago, he can work a match with a broom and still get 5 stars.
Right. And that, Yoshihiko, that's one of the things why the Yoshihiko, the wrestling dummy, it's a wrestling dummy that's from New Japan. That is actually a mark of honor to be able to put on a match. Only very few have actually done this, but to be able to have a match with Yoshihiko shows that you can wrestle a literal dummy and put on an entertaining show. Speedball Mike Bailey has wrestled Yoshihiko. I know Kota Ibushi had that incredible spot where he had like 8 consecutive Canadian destroyers with the dummy. I think
I remember when Kenny Omega wrestled this dummy in DDT, and he kept giving said dummy, like the Zongrit special, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah. That is a sign that you can have a match with, like you said, a broomstick and put on a great show. And I think that's a huge thing. But I do think, though, there is something next level when you do get that one, like when Will Ospreay's great against anybody, but you put him in a ring with somebody that can keep up with his level of athleticism, they're going to take that to that 5-star plus match. And that's why I'm excited about Kevin Knight. I've only recently learned about Kevin Knight, and this dude has hops. This dude can do a drop kick that makes Okada's drop kick look weak. This guy can really get some air. You get somebody like a Rey Fenix against a Vikingo, you're going to have those next level matches. But it still goes back to you've got to make your opponent look good, because then the whole match is good. And yeah, I think we beat that to death, but I absolutely agree.
I mean, come to think of it, Kevin Knight can basically wrestle whoever now that he's in both New Japan and AEW, which, of course, as I've heard recently, New Japan has had a lot of problems with AEW's booking issues. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to, and then, by the way, before I even get to that thought, I would just like to say that a match between Kevin Knight and Ninja Mac would feed families. That's all I got to say.
Book it. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I hope they meet up in the best of the Super Junior tournament. That's all I can say about that.
But please book it. You mentioned Clark. Go ahead. I'll bring it up later.
But still, though, going back to New Japan and talking about their issues, I mean, their former Western development director just signed on with a promotion I'm very fond with, RIZIN, the Rising Fighting Federation, as their new Western development director, I guess. I don't know what's the official title for that, but it's basically to build on international outreach. Now, when it comes down to New Japan Pro Wrestling, they just recently had a show in Chicago, Windy City Riot. Their next show is going to be Resurgence in the LA area, the greater Los Angeles basin, Ontario, California specifically, coming up next month. But when you look at what New Japan has gone through over the last few years with the partnership with AEW and the fact that they're not really getting the opportunity to showcase events, and the fact that, oh, by the way, one of their biggest stars in Jeff Cobb, even though he's not really big by popularity, he's just big in size. That motherfucker, former and for Guam in wrestling, by the way, is a tank.
He'll take you a tour of the islands in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still though, now that he signed with the WWE and New Japan has problems with their internal structure, trying to keep their stars not only trying to keep their stars active, but trying to basically get AEW to help focus on some of the American and North American outreach. I mean, do you think that this AEW New Japan partnership might last any longer, even though they got Forbidden Door coming up this summer in London?
I hope so. I think, well, we've I think Rocky Romero and there's a lot of you talk about Kenny, the Bucks. The Bucks were they did a lot. They spent a good amount of time as tag team champions there for a little bit, and now they're back in AEW. I hope so. I like Tanahashi as president, and of course that led to another classic meme of him when Kenny versus Gabe Kidd. And it cuts to him and he's got a tear going down his eye. That was just such a great
because
moment.
it was the most beautiful match you've ever seen.
Yeah. And he's just like, oh, that was so cool. I think it's going to be good. I wonder. I think it's more. And again, I'm an AEW mark, but I'm also realistic with its criticism.
Mm-hmm.
The booking has been a little bit odd. And I think sometimes there's things where there's kind of like Gabe Kidd shows up, and after that incredible match, that beautiful match in New Japan, Gabe Kidd shows up at a random collision, and then nothing comes of it. It's like after that in Forbidden Doors, not for a while. I felt like Gabe Kidd could have stuck around. They could have done some more with Gabe Kidd and had him a little bit more involved. I think for the first time in a while, they're gonna have Mercedes defend the New Japan title, and I guess she's also doing in England defending her other. I think two of the titles are actually one title combined.
Mm-hmm.
It's the UK title, but she's defending that. But I wish we would get back to more of that. Because that help and I do think that the plan is to eventually unite the Continental title and the international title, one title. But when Pac was the international champion,
he was like the all over the world, right?
Yes, and that's what I think AEW. What that does is that spreads spread awareness. That's not the right. I don't mean like get a ribbon or anything like that, but like it spreads. It spreads that legitimacy to the title, but also like it highlights so many other independent shows. You need a title that can be defended at any show, and that way it's a big deal. It's not only a big deal for the independent show or whatever the international show, but you could have the international champion defend the title at CMLL, defend the AEW International Championship at CMLL. I understand that. I think Tony Khan and Conan had some issues. That's why a lot of that's why I think the AAA partnership kind of fell apart. Was him and Conan not seeing eye to eye about stuff. I don't know, but I think that you could have that international title and it really shine a light on these other promotions. I think that there's an issue when it comes to. I've seen this with some of the partnerships AEW's had. Like if you think back to the original when they were partnering with TNA, there was a little bit of almost like AEW's first, it was almost like it wasn't so much a partnership. It was almost like
it was basically like AEW was bullying TNA.
Little bit. If hindsight, it looked like that a little bit, and I'm the first to say it. I mean, I was hoping a lot more out of that. I mean, I felt like there was a lot more that could have come through with that whole promotion. I feel like, and I'm a little bit afraid of that happening now with this partnership with WWE. Other than, I mean, if you look almost looked like they ended up poaching Jordan Grace. I mean, Jordan Grace was WWE bound anyways, I think. But
had to do was get rid of her content website.
Yeah, there you go. But like Masha Slamovich, Joe Hendry, say his name, he appears.
He
You know that.
appears, yeah.
And I do like the cross. It's been much more NXT and TNA, but I do like a lot of the crossing over that they've done with that verse, that was more what I was hoping AEW was going to do, but kind of long way around to get back to your original point. I think with folks like Tanahashi, and as long as you've got Rocky Romero, you've got Kenny Omega, you've got the Bucks, you've got, Okada, you've got people that are going to try to, as long as they're fighting to keep this positive, then it's going to work. But if Tony Khan has a falling out with Tanahashi, I can't imagine that being Tanahashi's fault. I can't see a scenario where that's on Tanahashi. You know what I mean?
Of course, it's not going to be on Tanahashi, because when it comes down to all of what Tony Khan has, I mean, obviously, he's a part of the ownership group for Fulham FC and soccer. Yeah. He's a part of the ownership group, obviously, along with his dad, Chad, with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL. If basically he has problems with Tanahashi, it's all going to come back on him, not the other way around, especially considering the fact that New Japan's been in the game since 72. They've been, they're not called the fucking king of sports just for no reason. And AEW, although they've been around for like the last 6 years, they've done some cool shit. They basically made wrestling. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say a variation of this. They basically made wrestling cool again. God.
Yep.
But
it's fine.
Point of the matter is, when it comes down to AEW, I mean, especially when it comes down to Tony Khan, there's plenty of shit they need to get together before they can actually, pull their own weight around with other promotions that have been in the game for 10, 20, 30, or in the case of New Japan, 50 years.
Yeah. Well, New Japan has evolved. Like the New Japan today, I think, compared to, burning flame.
Inoki. Fighting Spirit days, right?
Yeah, Fighting Spirit. Yeah, it's a different animal today. Of course, it had to evolve over time. I do think there's a huge opportunity to have, but I feel like it needs to be much more deliberate and planned instead of an afterthought. Oh, by the way, Gabe Kidd's going to show up. Oh, by the way, Clark Connors is going to challenge for this title, the TNT title. Have some packages ready to go. Really explain, before AEW, when there was the Bullet Club and of course you had the Elite inside the Bullet Club, that was hot. That was the whole thing about Hot Topic. They're the guy that they were at a WWE show and they saw these Bullet Club t-shirts and they asked WWE, hey, can we license those Bullet Club shirts in our shop? And they said, oh, we don't own that. That's New Japan. And then they were like, okay, let's call New Japan. They started doing the Bullet Club. That's the stuff that AEW needs to tap into and make exciting again, because, and bring in because look at what happened. They had an opportunity to bring, Tama Tonga, and they had an opportunity to bring in some of these guys, and with the kind of the newer Bullet Club, they could still kind of do that, but make it deliberate. Bring in Gabe Kidd, bring in Clark Connors, bring in David Finlay a little bit more than just a one-off. Make it, and then send more folks there. Willow, I think she did a little bit of a spin out there for with
if you think about it, Willow Nightingale and Nick Wayne are probably the only two people of the AEW roster that have actually busted their ass to compete in New Japan Pro Wrestling out of AEW. And you can also say, to a lesser extent, Wheeler Yuta did as well, but still don't. when it
That
comes down.
Anna Jay too, I guess, Anna Jay. But yeah, I did like Ty Mello having that one post-pregnancy match tag team with Mina Shirakawa, because like the bug was in her. But yeah, I feel like I don't know if it's politics, and that's another thing about AEW is they kind of keep a lot of things close to the chest. But I think I see opportunity there, and I hope they don't blow it.
Yeah, I hope they don't blow it either, especially considering the fact that with this Owen Hart tournament going on, I mean, right now everybody's going to be over the moon about the fact that as of this time right now, the way we're recording this tomorrow night in Boston, you're going to have Mercedes Moné versus the fallen goddess Athena. That match is probably going to be, I mean, yes, an Owen Hart Cup tournament semifinal match, but it's definitely going to be exciting for me, especially as somebody who had their indie promo interrupted by Athena before. I'll show you the clip after we're done here. But still, though, point of the matter is when it comes down to, that particular match, that's the type of match that should be boosted on every program that AEW has. I mean,
yes,
I wouldn't be surprised if that match ends up in a Smiz and we end up getting Athena versus Mercedes Moné at All In Texas for all the belts that Moné has and the Ring of Honor Women's World title that Athena has. That's some damn booking ahead.
Belt for belt, and she's a Texas girl, Athena.
Yep.
That's smart booking. That is such smart booking. Yeah, I think my predictions, I think Athena is going to win. And yeah, there could be interference, maybe there's some stuff happening, but I think the booking for Double or Nothing is going to be Athena versus Jamie Hayter for that final. But what I think is going to happen is Mercedes is going to cost Athena that match, and that's what sets up All In is Athena versus Mercedes. And like that, this has been a matchup that we've wanted. I want to ask you a question because I feel like Mercedes Moné, her whole career, but her post WWE career, I think is deserving of a study because there were moments where people were arguing that she wasn't worth her paycheck, and then her AEW debut was a little different, was unique. But since she had that first match with I think it was World's End? It was where she had against Chris Statlander. That first Chris Statlander match, and of course Statlander, there's another wrestler that can wrestle anybody, and it's going to be a banger. She had that first match with Statlander, and it was almost like you could see the rust on Mercedes Moné just flake off. And she kind of got into her groove. And I feel like Mercedes has had much better matches and has really started to find herself. And having her kind of have this dynamic with Harley Cameron has also been really helped shape her heel character out. Do you feel like Mercedes is, well, just your overall opinion of Mercedes? What do you think about her post WWE career versus Sasha Banks?
I mean, to be honest, you have to look at it like this. When she came into New Japan Pro Wrestling back in January of 2023, after she had that little time off after the whole kerfuffle with her and Naomi leaving the WWE because they were getting treated like shit backstage, even though they were the women's tag team champions. You have to wonder when it came down to Naomi. All she wanted to do was reinvent herself. So she did that by going over to TNA and winning the Knockouts title. And that's all cool and dandy. But when it came down to Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, Mercedes K. Varnado, it was all about finding herself.
Yeah.
And especially going over to Japan and training over there. And that was probably the last moments of her in WWE action just by taking that time off to go train with Mako Satomura to prepare for going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and more importantly, prepare for her to, grace our TV screens again in the States by wrestling in AEW. And I mean, to be honest, when it came down to that particular type of mindset, you have to think Mercedes has really reinvented herself over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially considering the fact that, back in 2022 when she left the WWE, she was basically considered an afterthought. Many people thought that she was just a pain in the ass who couldn't get along to go along. And now you have to be thankful for the fact that Homegirl is still wrestling in something like this, in an environment where she can call the shots, even though, it's kind of hard for her to basically let go of the spotlight when she's currently the the TNT champion, the New Japan Strong Women's champion, and the undisputed Real Pro British champion, who holds 2 belts of those vernacular. But still, though, I think all Mercedes needs is really that right type of chemistry. And she's getting that right now, kind of, with Harley Cameron. But in a way, if they're going to basically, cause her... No, wait, actually, what am I trying to say? If they're going to basically have an angle where she loses all 4 of the belts, don't make it feel like how the Elite was back in 2019 when All Elite Wrestling was formed and they ended up losing all of their matches at Wrestle Kingdom. All 4 of the members. I mean, make it basically like something that... Make it basically something that is historic, so to speak. Not have her have a historic collapse, but make it feel like that the matches are worth fighting for, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering the fact that, like I mentioned, that match between her and Athena, just imagine, like 40,000 people, or really 30,000, since they're competing in that dilapidated shed of the stadium known as Globe Light Field this summer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll be there.
Imagine 30,000 people in the middle of the day in Arlington, Texas, and they're basically doing dueling Let's Go Monet, Let's Go Athena chant. And that match ends with Athena getting her hand raised and shaking Monet's hand. That would be something that I would definitely want to see happen.
Yeah.
Especially considering the fact that Mercedes Moné, I mean, like I said, she's been in AEW now for what, about going on 6 months? I mean, close to a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's been out of WWE for the last 2. I mean, I think it's only going to be a matter of time before Homegirl finds that right dance partner that can basically bring the best out of her. And I hope that with the match coming up tomorrow night with Athena, we just might get that.
I think we will. I mean, I think the reaction too, and it was interesting how that whole, the streets were clamoring for it. Because people knew as soon as Billy Starks showed up on the screen confronting Mercedes, everybody made that instant connection that, oh, Billy Starks is a minion of Athena. Oh, we're getting it. Because that was what everybody wanted, is for, Mercedes had essentially beaten every woman in the women's division at AEW for the most part. Anna Jay, Chris Statlander, all these different people. And then, so she's out there being the CEO, and everybody was hoping to hear that Fallen Goddess theme hit. And then, so we got a little tease with that, with Billy Starks, and, kind of bringing her over from Ring of Honor. And then, so I almost feel like they shouldn't have spoiled it a little bit, because on the episode that Athena showed up, they kind of showed the tweet first, and I was like, oh, she's coming. But the moment Athena showed up and she confronted Mercedes, that was such a great, that was the beginning of, I think, one of the best feuds we're going to have this year. And, you know, we like to say, we like to feed families around here. And this one is going to definitely put food on the table. This match coming up. And I do feel like Mercedes is starting to really find those dance partners. I think Statlander has really been a great dance partner for her. And, you know, I think, you know, I think she's starting to really, again, another one that's starting to find her groove. And I think it sucks that, yeah, I've got opinions on Britt Baker. You know, it might be a little biased because, you know, one of my podcasts is Mission Pro Spotlight. But I felt like her match with Britt Baker didn't live up to the hype it should have had. And I think that may have been one of the two members' reasons for that. Whereas when you put Mercedes in with Statlander, you put Mercedes in with Julia Hart, you're going to get a banger. And I think that's Mercedes now starting to find not just her role as a character, but even how her role in the ring. You know, that she does a lot more. She does a lot more. How to describe it? Like she's more snake-like, and I don't mean in a sinister way, but more of as a move. Like she'll do those submission moves where she just kind of does this, or she's a lot of times she's reacting. She's on the receiving end of a move, and she's reacting in pain, and she's doing a good job selling. I feel like since in the last several months, she's really started to find her groove, and I loved seeing that in any wrestler.
And I mean, come to think of it, you talk about finding dance partners. I get what you mean, but also Mercedes, in addition to, you know, her future plans after tomorrow night, she also has an upcoming New Japan Strong Women's title defense in a 3-way match against Azumi and Mina Shirakawa in Ontario, California, coming up on May 9th. I mean, do you think that, considering the fact that Mina has been all about getting redemption on losing to Monet at Wrestle Kingdom and all of that, I mean, do you think that there might be more vengeance than redemption?
I think there'll be. I still think Mercedes is going to walk out of there still champ, but yeah, I think this is going to be, and this could set up, and this is what I'm talking about too. Like these are these opportunities that, like, yeah, have this moment. You know, of course, this is also great to continue to bring Azumi in as well. But you know, Mina is AEW. We want Mina. You know, that's the hashtag. We've been very clear about it. But this is such a great opportunity to really tie in, you know, this whole storyline and have Mercedes start to be scared of losing her titles. And, you know, I think it'd be, you know, whenever there's a 3-way, though, usually the champ retains because it's like, you know, the like in the case of talking about WrestleMania, the case of Io Sky, I hope Io Sky retains. But I like how the storyline is kind of Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley are more concerned with each other than Io Sky. I think the same could be here, where you're going to have Mina wanting to just get, like you said, vengeance on Mercedes, but you've also got Azumi there, which that's a whole other factor. And I think what's going to result is Mercedes is going to somehow sneak the win, but it's going to be one of those by the skin of her teeth wins. And that's going to make her. Do you remember how Kenny Omega, when he was the belt collector, but then he started getting scared to lose his belts? I think that's where.
And he always had help, either in the form of Don Callis or the form of the Young Bucks.
Yep. You know, people have been talking. Robin Renegade, you saw what she did for Mercedes after their match. You know, we might see Robin Renegade be part of the board of trustees, if you will, or of the CEO.
You're talking about Robin Renegade. What about her twin sister Charlotte?
Okay. Up until recently, my understanding was Charlotte was not going to be coming back anytime soon, but she just recently had an Instagram I don't know if it was a story or a post, but I think she just had up. Yeah, maybe it was a story. She had she did a quote. She said, I came across a quote that said, "Stop waiting to feel ready. Ready is not a feeling, it's a decision." Now, that was 6 hours ago.
Wow.
If Charlotte and Robin are gonna join with the CEO, and that is a faction I could really get behind. I had high hopes for Camille Brickhouse with her. That fell apart. I don't even want to talk about that, but I could really get behind the Renegades being kind of her muscle, being kind of her, or not so much her muscle, but kind of her not security, but just kind of her get things done, her toadies, if you will.
Yeah.
And if she get, and I think if she got another more solid third member or fourth member to join them, then she's got that protective, essentially an elite to help her keep those titles. I think that would be brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, when it comes down to, and obviously this week is WrestleMania week, and as we basically have chimed in on before, there's going to be a lot of competitors competing on this week's set of cards, and obviously there's going to be a lot of competitors representing WWE or representing AEW or even representing TNA that are going to be a part of some of these shows. I mean, that brings me to this one tweet from a few weeks ago where Lou Nelson basically was, I wouldn't say complaining, I wouldn't say bitching and moaning. I mean, he was just upset that, there wasn't any slots for him to compete on Bloodsport. And that card's going to be stacked to the gills with some of the best competitors in pro wrestling and, in the case of Shinya Aoki, MMA history. But still, though, when you look at the fact that Lou Nelson is basically worried or upset that he's not getting a WrestleMania payday, and you look at all the competitors on the indie scene these days who are basically wishing that they were out in Las Vegas right now just to get prepared for this week. I mean, what comes to mind? What do you think is basically the reason why this has happened? Could it be because of the fact that the WWE has pretty much put their own spin on independent professional wrestling?
I'm glad you asked this question, because this kind of leads me into, I'm always for anything that's going to really help elevate wrestling. And this is kind of where we started at the beginning about building awareness of all of the tremendous wrestling organizations that are out there. There, you and I have some favorites. Mission Pro Wrestling, is one of my favorites, of
Reality
course. But Reality of Wrestling, yeah, ROW, RC, River City Wrestling. There's a ton of great promotions out there. Mm-hmm. However, my in a former life, when I was years ago when I was hosting a Reality Check Radio, and we would interview reality stars from Survivor, from Amazing Race, from Big Brother, and American Idol, and we had some interesting conversations with a lot of the American Idol contestants, and something that was I found eye-opening was the way that the contestants, the way that the contracts that they would sign would be worded. If you ever want to really hear a really interesting conversation, Juno Joyner, he goes by Indigo Blue, but Juno Joyner was a contestant on American Idol, and he referred to it as a slave tract because I have no love lost for the music industry in general, but these contestants were almost bullied into signing away their rights to their own music, and were prevented from signing with any other label other than the American Idol. Yeah, what's that?
19 Entertainment, which is
yes.
American Idol's go-to production.
Exactly. So they were, it basically was, hey, you signed this contract, you have a chance to become famous, but you more, but if you do, if we don't pick you, if you're not the winner or you're not going to be, be the top, whatever, we're going to still control your music and you can't like, and with, and their philosophy was like, they have a show and let's say some performer made it on the semifinals, but then was eliminated, but then goes and signs with RCA and has a great record deal. Our American Idol would argue, well, that's because people found out about him on our show. But when reality, what was happening is they were bogarting a lot of these incredible talents, and these contracts were basically just stopping them from becoming a bigger star than the stars that 19 Entertainment were making. And I put quotes because, there was a machine behind that. Fast forward to today with this WWE ID contract. And while this has got a lot of potential to really highlight some great superstars, they're slapping this WWE ID, on a lot of these promotions. But my question, and that to you and to everybody listening, is this is another case where are the positives and the negatives? What's the net positive or negative here? Because what it sounds like with these contracts is it sounds like they're because a wrestler signs a WWE ID contract, they're not signing a WWE contract. They're signing, hey, almost like an intent, like they're almost basically saying, hey, we have the right to offer you a contract, but you can't sign anywhere else. So a wrestler that signs a WWE ID contract, if Tony Khan comes along and offers them a ridiculous amount of money to sign, they can't because WWE has already got them on a contract with WWE ID. Mm-hmm. And then you have the potential to maybe get on NXT, if they really, really like you. Now, we've seen some benefits, like you talked about LFG, and like, we're starting to see some of these WWID guys. Like the guys that remind me of the Ferda hockey players from Letterkenny, the two guys, the two bros that are on there. They're like, one guy looks like he's 16. But we're starting to see some guys, and I'm happy to see Kylie Ray kind of get some spotlight again. She's had her demons and she's had things she's had to fight, but it's good to see her involved in that. I think she's got potential, but a lot of these others that sign these WWID contracts, I fear that what it looks like, because you imagine you're a kid, you're a wrestler, you're an independent wrestler, you're just starting out, and then WWE shows up. But if you really look at the contract, I have my feeling, and again, I have not read the contracts, but from what it sounds like it's much more of an effort to bogart independent fans from going anywhere but WWE, even if they never sign them, and also stopping like AEW and other promotions from signing them. Well, so what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the thing is, and as far as American Idol is concerned, I basically know of only one competitor, one person that was even a part of that, and that was voice actress Emily Nevis, who does work here in the state of Texas for Crunchyroll and Sentai Filmworks. Nice. She basically had a shitty Idol experience as well, and I think that she gonna probably reveal that shit in due time. But as far as professional wrestling goes, as far as the WWE, ID program goes, I mean, when it comes down to independent promotions nowadays, I mean, especially down here in my neck of the woods, I think we're already seeing that, because there was once upon a time, and I know I can't really talk about this too much because the reality of wrestling is my favorite promotion. But there was once upon a time where the reality of wrestling would bogart other local promoters in Galveston County, Texas, from doing shows in the particular area, just to basically get them to come out and do their shows, the reality of wrestling, when they came down to what was then the Mall of the Mainland, now the Mainland City Complex out in Texas City, which I'm not that far from. I'm 15 minutes away from the damn complex. But still, though, when it comes down to what the WWE ID program or even the WWE Next in Line program has done, is they basically gotten some of these competitors, some of these athletes, either fresh off of tossing a javelin or fresh off of playing ball, like the Van Lip sisters, of which one of them just got drafted into the WNBA last night, Haley Van Lip. I mean, and you basically mixed them up with some of these established competitors who have been wrestling their asses off for 5, 10, maybe even 15 years. I mean, I know Kylie Ray's been wrestling for a dozen years at this point by now and wrestled just about everywhere. But still, though, I think that if they know how to do that right, they can basically make some damn good success stories. I mean, right now I'm watching WWE Evolve and seeing this tag team called Swipe Right.
Yes, that's what I was talking about earlier, the Furta Boys. Yes.
Yes, they're jumping right onto NXT and trying to vie for a tag team title opportunity against Fraxium, Nathan Frazier and Axiom for the Uninhibited.
Yep.
And again, you also got some of these athletes, some of these stars that just don't feel right in the WWE system. And then you got some of these next in line people that just want to come in and basically say, oh, I've been in the ring and all of that. I mean, it can go right in the case of folks like Obafemi, but it can also go wrong in the case of Haley Van Lip. And in that case, I don't mean it like a bad thing. I mean it like basically means that they just don't know their place in a WWE ring, so they feel better going back to other types of athletic competition, or even Gable Steveson, for that matter. I mean, we all know how his first and only WWE match went out. It sucked. I mean, granted, Baron Corbin wasn't really that much of a bad dance partner. It's just that the match was dreadful.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah. It was I can basically say it now. It was the drizzling shits. But still, point of the matter is you're going to get a lot more of these competitors who just don't feel right in a WWE ring. And then you're going to get a lot of these competitors who feel right either in their own sports, their own other sports, or in basically other forms of competition. And to be honest, I won't be surprised if we start hearing about more of these horror stories more than anything else. But if the WWE knows how to make this thing a success, and they do, I can hope that more of these competitors will be ready for the big time, whether it's in the WWE or elsewhere, rather than just saying, oh, I've been in the ring, let me check this box off.
Yeah.
And go see what's next.
Yeah, and that. And speaking from a talent perspective, yeah, there is that weeding out of the those that are dedicated. Kind of circling back to our talking about that one Punk guy that isn't that is pissing everybody off like Bully Ray and everybody. But like when WWE had that little streak where they were bringing in non-wrestling athletes and trying to make them stars. There were some diamonds in there, like Carolina Cruz is a great example of a wrestler they brought in and they let her go. She was a rugby player. She was a female rugby player, and that was kind of her claim to fame, if you could call it fame. Not a whole lot of people watch women's rugby, but she came in. She kind of did the ropes, and like this kind of begs the question. In some cases, it might be just a matter of time and experience. Well, since she was let go of NXT, she has now and it helps that she's dating Lexis King, but she started doing her own independent shows, like going around to different independent programs. She's been all over the map lately. Like 2025 has been tremendous for her. She's wrestled Izzy Moreno 3 times for the Mission Pro title. She has had she's had a number of opportunities, and of course, I think she's going to Japan. She has improved. Like if you see her matches now, she's tremendous compared to when she started. Of course, anybody is. But I think you're right. Like there's in some cases that it could be a weeding out of who wants it and who doesn't. But even in this environment now, being let go from WWE doesn't mean you may not circle back and show up, or it doesn't mean you don't have a career in wrestling. And in her case, she was crushing it. So I think that's a positive thing. My only fear is WWE also using this WWID program to be kind of a predatory, like you mentioned with Booker T's promotion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, come to think of it, they probably might be already. I mean, in the case of the reality of wrestling, and I'm not saying this as I'm pretty much a fan of theirs or a homer or what the fuck ever, it's the fact that they have so many competitors in their little wall of fame that went on to go on to do big and bright things. I mean, obviously, we mentioned Ninja Mac. We mentioned Rachel Rose. We mentioned Brian Keith. I mean, we mentioned all these competitors that they got. I mean, Ryan Davidson, who just celebrated his birthday. I mean, shit, even Gino Medina. But when it comes down to all of the competitors that the reality of wrestling has, they still have that partnership with WWE and with TNA. I mean, I basically see them as like a third brand here compared to those two that's like a feeder promotion. Yeah. But when it comes down to the other WWE ID promotions, I mean, I think it's what Knox Pro, Black and Brave Academy, and damn it, who else?
There's several of them.
Yeah, there might be several of them, but still, though, I only hope that when it comes down to this WWE ID program, that they don't try and make it pass off as it's the only name in town. You can only go to these promotions, or you're going to basically be forced to find something elsewhere,
Yeah, and it kind of this is something that in light of the recent, this actually came out like yesterday and today about Mariah May. Is the rumors are she's WWE bound, and Jeff Cobb is going to WWE, and the whole story came out in the interview Stephanie Vaquer had with I think it was Bully Ray, where she mentioned that AEW offered Stephanie a ton more money than they offered her at WWE. And WWE basically told Stephanie Vaquer, take the AEW deal. And she turned it down because in her mind, WWE has always been a dream. And Mariah May has made the same comment that WWE has always been her dream. I worry about that because I feel like Mariah May will stand out because of her personality and skill in the ring. But you have a Tiffany Stratton, a Maxine Dupree. You have a lot of that same template of character, unless she finds a way to differentiate herself, which I'm sure she would. But this notion of WWE still kind of being the dream, where wrestlers and talent are willing to take a pay cut, which, at the end of the day, with the price tags, it's still going to be, they're going to be fine. But like wrestlers willing to take a pay cut to go to WWE, is that like, are we like we talked to AEW needs to get its house in order before it can truly be competitive? But it's kind of like, is WWE still kind of that dream? And is there a fallacy that, like when you have the success stories of like a Matt Cardona and the like, I feel like it's a fallacy to think that you can, that WWE is the only way you can be a success as a wrestler.
I mean, come to think of it, this ain't 2001 anymore where the WWE is the only game in town. Now you have options.
Yep.
I mean, if anything, I'm just hoping that all those options are, realized, because of the fact that when you see some of these wrestlers, I mean, I can't really get off this fucking tribalism bullshit. I really hate the fact that there is tribalism in not only professional wrestling, but it's starting to seep a little bit into MMA as well.
Yeah.
With the whole UFC thing, how it's the only game in town and everybody's not caring about what else is after that. It's just the fact that when it comes down to some of this tribalism, it's just pathetic. I mean, I'm not trying to say watch all wrestling, because not everybody has a way to watch all these promotions, whether or not they have money for a subscription.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that when it comes down to some of these competitors, and I'm gonna basically say it like when it comes down to some of these competitors and some of these promotions, I'm gonna just basically say it like Brian Zane says on Wrestling with Regret: like what you like, just don't be a dick.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And people say I've been accused of toxic positivity, but enjoy what you like. It's kind of like if you like the butter popcorn Jelly Belly and I don't, I'm not going to be mad at you because you like it. I mean, I think that's silly. And I think some of the tribalism, it's like a sports thing. And you see it in politics, you see it in like football teams and stuff where people are like, well, the Jets are going to blah, blah, blah. And it's silly, especially because the talent, they don't care about you don't have people, I mean, with a couple exceptions at the top, you don't like, Ricky Starks going to cheer on Cody Rhodes at WWE shouldn't be seen as like betraying AEW, or somebody backstage, like when Trinity, Nia, I think it was Nia Jax, it was Tamina, Trinity, and Bailey went to support Mercedes when at her AEW debut. That everybody was like, how could you betray WWE? I mean, that's
either that or her New Japan match.
Yes. It's like, what? That's silly. I don't get mad if I'm gonna watch Daredevil. Are you gonna get mad at me for betraying DC Comics? If I'm gonna enjoy a Marvel show, or it's like, that's, to me, that's silly. Like what you like, enjoy it, and what other people like should not bother you to the point where you have to go out of your way to troll on it. I mean, unless you're just trying to be a troll or get clicks, it seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, some of these people are just basically, and I mean, I really hate that, for what am I trying to say? Damn it. I really hate the whole engagement farming type of stuff, where people think they got an opinion and they basically saying, oh, let me get more subscribers than the other people talking about this, because they basically want to, talk all the same shit,
Yeah.
It's just pathetic to me. I mean, especially considering the fact that I run this whole thing on a shoestring budget with a few other people. But still, though, when it comes down to this, I don't basically talk about how much my shit stink. I just basically, talk about the whole thing as is, and not basically try and get too much into this whole tribalism bullshit.
And you and I think are kindred in this. We share this philosophy that there's a difference between being a critic of something and as a fan versus dumping on something, shitting on something just to get hype, or just be like that tribalism. Like, I've been critical. Like I told you, AEW is my number one. I love AEW, but I'm also one of the first to criticize when I'm like, that booking was strange, or why aren't you doing anything with Wardlow? Why, a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, I'm critical of. Same thing with but also I have no problem like highlighting something positive about WWE, and I've had people go, "Oh, WWE sucks." I'm like, no, not right now. This post Vince era is some good. It's some good shit. And I feel like, there's a lot of things that you can praise about a lot of wrestling all around. And I think you and I share that philosophy where it's like being critical of something doesn't mean you hate the thing. In fact, if you truly are a fan, then your criticisms are more valid, I think.
Exactly.
So.
And come to think of it, we're gonna close things out, but I do want to ask a couple of more questions. First of all, when it comes down to Mania week, I mean, I know there's a lot of shows. I mean, we're basically circling the wagon back to talking about why we even on here first. There's a lot of shows taking place this week for WrestleMania week. But what show, or in particular, what match are you most looking forward to, considering the fact that we got from tomorrow, April 16th, as the time of this recording, all the way up to next Tuesday with the NXT show from the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas?
All right, not counting the actual WrestleMania stuff, of course.
Understood.
I'm interested. I mean, I can't say stand and deliver either, right? I mean, we can't talk about.
Yeah, you can't talk about. I mean, because I was on the Hall of Fame podcast talking to Booker T and Brad Gilmore, and Brad Gilmore had the fucking audacity to say, "Well, the match I'm looking forward to is something from NXT Stand and Deliver." I mean, like, come on, man. If you're gonna say I'm looking forward to something for WrestleMania weekend outside the WWE, don't fucking say it's from NXT. It's the same damn brand.
It is. I mean, it's not quite the same. I mean, there's more of a difference between AEW and Ring of Honor than there is NXT WWE. You know what I mean? Especially when you've got so much crossover with NXT and WWE. Don't get me started. We could do a whole other podcast on what the heck they're doing with Roxy and what are they doing with Lash Legend and Chikara. But I will say this: there are individual matches I'm looking forward to trying to catch in some way. GCW, I'm actually interested in Zeta Steel versus Kylie Ray. I think that is a WWID match, but I hope that counts. I am excited. I like, Brittany Blake. It has been, we could talk about, she's been fantastic. I'd like to see, I think she's wrestling, Zoe Lucas, the whole, I think it's in San Antonio, but Potter Mania. And again, I'm biased because Izzy's going to be there, and Izzy, of course, is going to be involved with a lot of this stuff. But you've got the Ladies Night Out Championship. Ashley Vox is challenging Jasmine Allure, top tier. I'm a huge Jasmine fan.
Where is that match going to take place?
That's actually in Las Vegas at the FSW Arena. So that's definitely going to be something worth checking out. I think I'm looking forward to that. Then there's is it this week? What's the one? I'm trying to think of the one. There's one other, now I'm thinking that might not be this weekend because they thing. But yeah, those are some of the matches I'm interested to see. Of course, Matt Cardona's taking on Starboy Charlie, who I got a soft spot for Starboy Charlie. He's another one of those guys that he's kind of like a popular with the sickos. He's not quite Ninja Mac level, but he's got that, like, anybody that's seen him wrestle, because he shows up in like overalls and he just looks bizarre. But Matt Cardona is another one of those guys that can really, he comes across arrogant, but he's actually one of those guys that can really make his opponent look good. I'm looking forward to that. Of course, all the Mina Shirakawa, Rochelle Rose. I'm looking for that. I'm excited about a lot of the women's wrestling. I'm excited about. I really like the rise in women's wrestling that has grown. I feel like we're kind of really in a renaissance for women's wrestling. So I would say offhand, without getting into the actual, WWE stuff. I mean, I might be cheating by talking about some of these WWE ID matches. Izzy is taking on. I think Izzy's taking on. Was Izzy taking on Zeta Steel?
I would think so. Huh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on, and Potter Mania is going to be worth checking out. So, anyways, a lot of cool stuff, and I think we can also say a huge congratulations to Kaya Dream and New. Talk about a success story. This is a lady that she picked up and moved to Texas all on her own. And now look at the success that she's having in her career.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen her compete a handful of times in the reality of wrestling. And now she's basically done well for herself.
Yep. And New. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Go ahead.
You can go ahead and continue.
No, I'm really excited. There's a special place in my heart for Kylie Rae. And I think that there's a lot more nuance, and the whole thing with her and Chris Jericho, I think there's a lot more to that story than what people were assuming. I don't know. Really only a few people know what happened. I feel like she struggled with a lot of stuff because she would join a promotion, then disappear to take time off. I think she was, I think mental health is very important, but she has really not only fought as far as like busted her ass as far as wrestling work, but she's had to really overcome a lot, I think, with herself to get to where she's at now. And I'm really hoping for some positive stuff out of this. I think she's somebody they could really build you're talking about success stories. I think she's one that they could really highlight as a success story that moves on to become kind of not quite a Bayley, but like she could kind of be that new kind of positive character that could really be popular with fans, especially kids, especially little girls. And I think she's one that could be one of those success stories from the WWID program. And I'm really, they're wrestling at GCW. I think the Moon and View at the Palms, and it's Zeta Steel, Kylie Rae. I think if that's a good match, it's going to make both wrestlers look great. And I think moving on from that, it's going to be tremendous.
I see. I mean, the matches that I'm going to be looking forward to over WrestleMania weekend, I mean, obviously, this is WrestleMania week. But the matches I'm going to be looking forward to, I mean, there's going to be 2 on Bloodsport that's going to definitely tickle my excitement. And that's Shinya Aoki, MMA legend. His last name is spelled Aoki. He's going to be facing off against the son of William Regal, that being Charlie Dempsey. Wow. And that match is definitely going to be interesting and more than looking forward to. But I'm definitely going to be looking forward to Shayna Baszler versus Konami, because those two were trained by MMA legend Megumi Fuji. And when it comes down to those two, I think it's going to probably be hold for hold, just interesting to look at, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then another match I'm going to be looking forward to is going to be on the For the Culture show, which is going to be which is going to be on May. Damn it. What am I trying to say? It's going to be on late Friday night, early Saturday morning here in the Central Time Zone for us, and probably the Eastern Time Zone for you. I mean, aside from the main event, which is Zilla Fatu, the new Reality of Wrestling heavyweight champion, defending
Yep.
his short rope belt against Josh Bishop inside of a steel cage. The match I'm also going to be looking forward to is Tiara James versus Maya World, and hopefully that'll be something special, you know?
Oh, Maya World is, and that's another fantastic talent that she's destined for stardom. I had to pull up the whole card for, I can't believe I forgot about this on Bloodsport. The recently departed from AEW, Layla Hirsch is taking on Jordan Blade, the daddy of the district. Dude.
That match is probably going to be something interesting. But what about Micah versus Carmen Petrovic, though?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this card. Karrion Kross, who just had an interesting moment with AJ Styles the other night, or it was last night.
Yeah, it was.
You've got Pete Dunne, Timothy Thatcher. Yeah, Shayna Baszler, Josh and Gabe. See, there's Gabe Kidd. Like, why is Gabe Kidd not more involved? AEW, whatever. Zack Sabre Jr. is going to be there. Carmen Petrovic versus Micah. Tremendous. Like, yeah, I can't believe. And yeah, Natty. Wait, Natalia is going to be at Bloodsport.
Alia Neidhart is going to be competing against Miyu Yamashita.
I didn't even realize that was taking place. That's fantastic. That's good for Natalia, and she's one of those wrestlers that, regardless of whatever perceived success she's had in kayfabe, you talk backstage at WWE, she's one of the names that comes up as far as leadership, as far as helping others, and that's fantastic.
I mean, it's hard to believe she's been with the Big Fat and Stanford for 17 years now.
Yeah. She had a great interview, I think, with Van Vliet, Vliet, whatever. I've heard it many ways.
Vliet?
Yeah, Van Vliet. Yeah, she had a great interview with him, and she opened up about a lot of stuff, both the Hart Foundation, the Hart family, almost said Hart Foundation, but that too, and just kind of, her career, which I thought was very, very eye-opening. Good stuff. Mm. I don't mean to keep this going, but just real quick question. What has been your opinion of the presentation of Shayna Baszler for post NXT?
Like, with basically been hit or miss to me. I think it's been more so the fact that, yeah, they were riding off the success of her being, former training partner, former best friend, Ronda Rousey. Mm-hmm. But in a way, when it comes down to her career outside of that, it's basically been hit or miss because she hasn't won a WWE women's title or world title, but she has been a tag team champ. She's been saddled up in stables that pretty much, I wouldn't say are forgettable. It's just the fact that she just basically been dealt. I mean, considering the fact that she's the Queen of Spades, she's been dealt the short hand.
Yeah, she got the two of spades all of a sudden, or the Joker.
I mean, it's like every card she's been jumping on has been a Joker card for her so far. When it comes down to her future career in the Big Fat and Stanford in WWE, she at least gets treated with respect, because it's hard to basically have a talent like Shayna Baszler on your roster and you're not utilizing her. Mm-hmm. But still, though, considering the fact that we are getting close to the 11 o'clock Eastern hour, and obviously you got to go, I mean, I want to give you the opportunity to put over yourself and, show where the people can find you.
Absolutely. Of course, yeah, the Twitter, the X, the Tweety Bird, whatever you call it, at Myndrunner. That's the best place to find a lot of the stuff that I promote. You can find us normally on Thursdays, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. You can find myself and Angel Marie on the Mission Pro Spotlight podcast, where we are part of the Mission Pro Wrestling organization, Thunder Rosa's promotion. And while that's currently on hiatus, you got to stay tuned. You never know when something might be coming back. You never know. but definitely stay tuned. We our focus is lifting up women's wrestling in general, and we spotlight specific talent. And we have interviews, we have joint ventures, we have panels, which you were actually a part of one of our panels that was fantastic. You're talking about representation. I thought that was a lot of fun.
It was myself, Lyric, and Xenia, right?
Yep, Xenia was there as well. It was, and I felt like that was a really great chat that we had. And then also 9 o'clock. We're now at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. Dynamite Download, where we are an AEW focused podcast, myself and SPD, and we have a whole crew. We have a lot of fun. Both podcasts, we have a lot of fun. We make it a show. We have segments. We interact with the fans. We have a lot of great interviews. And some very revealing interviews. We found out that Lance Archer's favorite food in Japan is raw horse. We found out Fuego cursed in front of Ric Flair.
Wow.
There's a lot of cool stuff. We had a great interview with Brittany Brooks. We had a great interview with Kaya Dream before she became the Reality of Wrestling champion, and we had a lot of cool stuff. And we also have the Izzy report, and we now not just have the Izzy report, but you can also sometimes get the Calientita report, because Callie doesn't want us to just focus on Izzy, but we have that going on Thursdays. And Mental Health Mondays, that's currently on hiatus, but that's coming back, and that's more of a mental health focus on promoting positive mental health and realistic positivity on how to overcome depression, anxiety techniques, and also hearing stories from other people that suffer that deal with like ADHD, bipolar disorder. We talk about moving on from suicide prevention, suicidal thoughts, and how to find healthy, productive ways to get yourself out of those mental health challenges, and to realize that you're not alone. We all deal with a lot of different various scales, and just because what's bringing you down may, in comparison to others, may not seem as, like, you might tell yourself, why am I worried? I'm worried about this when someone else has got a lot worse than me? It's all relative, because what you're going through, no one else is going through at that moment. No, nobody can really understand what you're going through. And, it's very important to me to continue to promote positive mental health, but that's not being Pollyanna about it too. It's realistic. It's addressing those demons and taking them head on.
I see. And obviously, I should know mental health is definitely worth your wealth.
Yes.
Especially considering the fact that there was a recent news story about a top NFL prospect having killed himself in a car crash.
Yeah.
I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I basically think that a lot of people need to check more on their mental standing now more than ever, especially in these turbulent times, because you never know what people might be going through. But as far as where you can get my content, you can check out the links in the description below. And obviously, when it comes down to yours, you say that the Mental Health Podcast is on Spotify, even though y'all haven't done an episode in over a year.
Yeah.
Is the other two podcasts, Dynamite Download and MPW Spotlight, also available as well?
Dynamite Download is on Spotify. We're working on as Mission Pro's on hiatus right now. We are transitioning a lot of the media right now. This hiatus is kind of a restructuring of things, if you will. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. I can't really get into too much right now. And it's not really for me to say. If you want to really know what's going on with Mission Pro, the whole promotion, talk to Thunder Rosa. She'll gladly fill you in on what's going on, what she can say. But as far as Spotify and stuff like that, that's in the works. Title Match Network, of course, is a great place to go for like past pay-per-views matches. I mean, Title Match Network has been a great partner for us. But Dynamite Download is on Spotify. You can definitely check it out. Just look for Dynamite Download. If you see the big gorilla holding the dynamite sticks, that's our logo, Dynamite Download. And then you can check us out. Of course, you can check us out on YouTube. And check out Mental Health. Even though we've been on hiatus for over a year, there's a ton of great of interviews that I've done that are on Mental Health Mondays. Just look for my mug. You should be able to, it's the smiley face logo. I've interviewed Russ. Of course, it's funny too, because I'd say about half of my interviews are people I've known through wrestling, but it's been great. I've interviewed everyone from Kayla Sparks, Deb Housen from the Nation's Corner, Karina Harney, Playmate of the Year, 1992. I've had Josh Robert Thompson, great interview with Josh Robert Thompson from the Craig Ferguson show. He used to play the robot. He was the robot. Great insight too. In fact, a lot of insights to what kind of was behind the scenes with that. But then also, people that are like, regular people like us that are going through the same kind of stuff. And like, when I talked to Mikey Ruckus about his ADHD, it really shed some light on understanding what that really entails. A lot of times people think ADHD is kind of very sporadic. But like talking, Lou Fisto was a great interview talking about her ADHD and a lot of the stuff that she's had to endure as one of the pioneers of women's wrestling. And again, it's not I joke on the show, it's not a wrestling podcast, but we tend to get in there about that a lot. Definitely worth checking out. Please check it out. Let me know what you think. And it is coming back. It's probably sometime this summer we'll be bringing it back, but it's been on hiatus as I've been kind of dealing with some stuff as well. And but now we're on the hype train to Awesome Town, so it's gonna be all good.
Or in some cases, we're on the road to being all in, so to speak.
I like that. Are you going to All In?
I mean, I fucking wish. I mean, to be honest, I probably can't even afford to go to the 2 Tokyo Joshi Pro shows that are going to be taking place this summer in the Houston area. I mean, I really hope that I really hope that those shows will be streaming on Triller TV or something like that. But still, though, I'm just excited for what the world of pro wrestling has in store for this week and beyond. But like you said, mental health is wealth. We got to keep our focus in check, so to speak. But
absolutely. But if you want to if you're listening right now and you want to get Chris Gary to All In, support this share, like, subscribe, get everybody to support this podcast. Go support Focus Fights. Let's get that going so we can get our guy here to All In.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. If you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and review. And, I wouldn't say get myself over, but help get us both over. Yes. So to speak. That's all I got to say. But other than that, I'm about to go ahead on and go. Myndrunner, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And
as always,
next time we can basically do more of these partnerships.
Love it. Love it. Looking forward to it.